When I last left you here on Locked On Browns, I left everybody with the notion and the mention of the Cleveland Browns needed to go acquire wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Well, Saturday, Andrew Berry and company did just that. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We are joined by the OBR's Pete Smith. I thank everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you guys knew it. I got a bunch of messages from you today. Be more like the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. The everydayers know, many of you saw it, heard it. I had brought up in going through, possible wide receiver additions for the Cleveland Browns. One thing, and this is the thing, and guys, this isn't hard. If you follow this franchise, if you dig deep into this franchise, you know the moves that are appealing to the Cleveland Browns. Well, one of those moves surfaced today. Cleveland Browns, just like they did 2 years ago. Amari Cooper for a fifth-round pick, all in. Last year, pick swap, get a player you covet like Elijah Moore. Browns get that one done. Another player the Browns have been chasing after several times, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. You gave up, I believe it's 155 and pick 202 in the 2024 draft. Obviously, that draft compensation was good for the Browns. They can create more draft picks, still moves to be coming. So they get the move done. You bring in Jerry Jeudy, you now have a wide receiver room. Now, Jerry Jeudy, whatever anybody thinks about him, and look, perfect player at this point in his career? No. 2 seasons, over 850 yards? Yes. You pair that with an Amari Cooper. You pair that with 640 yards from Elijah Moore. You pair that with David Njoku, who almost had 900 last year. Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson have 3,500 yards coming to their passing game from what these guys did last year. Pete, We've been talking a lot. We always do this time of year. And one of our biggest issues was, as far as what they could do in the draft, is what's in the draft and where the capital was that the Browns had. It didn't necessarily line up with the needs that they had. And look, it's not just wide receiver they needed. They have other needs. Wide receiver class is big. It's deep. It could dry up. So they got this move done today. They get a guy who came in, former first-round pick, going to play on his fifth-year option. And this is, I'm not saying the position is done, and obviously we're going to get to that further in the episode, but Andrew Berry, again, just smells the blood in the water and just goes out and gets what he wants.
Yeah, look, I thought long ago that the Browns would trade for a wide receiver. One, impact. You can't go into the draft, we're going to get a guy who's going to impact the team. It's a really bad way to operate, and there's no shortage of ways that doesn't work. The other part is you sort of alluded to me, I think once you get past like the first couple receivers, there's a pretty big drop off. And that doesn't mean there's not talent, but what I mean is, like, and you and I have sort of talked about this, is you can get excited about a guy, but you can also see where they would like fail miserably, to the point where you're not like, this is the guy, I want this guy. And even if you had that, you can't guarantee you're going to get it. So what does Andrew Berry do? As he always does, is he tries to eliminate the need to try to press to go get a certain position. And the other part of this is that seems to always set up is that the Browns are probably going to trade down anyway, unless, they may have a couple guys that they love. They always do. But if those guys aren't there, they're probably going to move down to acquire more assets, because that area of the draft, just looking at wide receiver, I feel like the guy you could get at 54 is in the same caliber of player as the guy you would get at 70. Now, ultimately, we'll look back hindsight and go, how could you possibly not take insert name who goes off and everything else? But like, there are a lot of guys we've talked about, Keon Coleman, Xavier Leggett, obviously after his combine, Ricky Pearsall. There's all these guys you talk, Xavier Worthy, whoever. And you're just sort of like, yeah, this guy's got a lot of talent with a big, heavy butt. And I think the Browns didn't want to have to wait around for that. And they could still take one of those players, but they wanted to make sure they've gotten the area addressed in a way where they feel like they can play good. They can play well right out of the gate. And I really like, as much as I have major questions about Jeudy, and I have major questions about Jeudy, I do like the fit in what the Browns are going to do offensively. Him and Elijah Moore in particular just are going to cause problems. And if you're going to play as much spread as at least Ken Dorsey has in the past, that's a lot of real estate that defenses are going to have to cover, crossing routes, various guys in motion, all those other things. There's a lot of fun elements that this can do. And Brad Spielberger or PFF put out a tweet. They basically like listed receivers by 40-plus yard plays. And like two of the guys on that list are Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. And you have a quarterback. Like everybody has been wanting the Browns to get their Will Fuller type guy. Jerry Jeudy may be that. It may not be in sort of the package you necessarily expected, but he's definitely a speed receiver that can stretch the field, can force opponents to back up, which may benefit the running game. But like it's such a low risk option that it's hard to argue with it.
And, look, and this is what you get where, you have a smart franchise. And look, everybody is talking about this wide receiver class. And, these guys. So what do? Say, well, you want to know what? If that's where everybody's attention is going to be, then maybe I'm not going to address that at 54. And look, Pete and I, we never believe the Browns are making the first selection they have. We pretty much believe that they're usually going to trade down. And it's not necessarily for future picks within the current draft. You always like to have that draft ammo at your disposal. Obviously, this would be the case, and it would be maybe acquiring some picks towards 2025. Obviously, when the Browns are going to be a tad bit more plentiful as far as the apps, the strength, the importance, and the value as they have now a pick that will be in the first round. But you get a guy, and look, there are issues. Is he a consistent catcher at times? Sometimes he has issues with drops. It's not a lie. It's a fact. But you still look at the production. You also look at the fact that he played with Russell Wilson the last 2 years. And people, and me, guys, I will tell you right now, people, Russell, but I don't want to hear it. Russell Wilson did not play well the last 2 years. The standard was Russell Wilson. So if you were looking at him as Russell Wilson, he did not play well the last 2 years. It's plain and simple. Look, he's going to come in here. Is it, are you going to assume he's going to get the same statistical production he did in the last 2 years? Maybe not. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns want to be winning more games. They want to be playing from ahead, so which means you're slowing the game. You're running the clock down towards the end. But you get a guy in here. Browns get a really good opportunity here. There's obviously a lot of work that's going to be done with the wide receiver room because you are going to have 3 wide receivers that are slated to be free agents in 2025 between Cooper, between Moore, between Jeudy. The thing that appeals me is you got 3 guys striving for next contracts. These guys want to eat. They want to perform. They want to earn future money. We're going to continue here. Your latest Locked On Browns. We're going to talk more about the wide receiver group and pass in receivers as a whole. Jeff Lloyd, joined by the OBR's Pete Smith. Nobody go anywhere. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. The offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Jeff Lloyd, joined by Pete Smith of the OBR. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate everybody who makes the show their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you knew what I wanted. You knew what I thought was going to happen. Andrew Berry delivered today. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And, of course, the show is always available, always free. Pete, going through this now, and you put Jerome Ford's name in this, who will be a part of this team next year, as we know. Cedric Tillman, who most likely will be a part of this team next year. David Bell, who will most likely be a part of this team next year. You were talking about a collective group that had contributed over 4,000 yards receiving last year. Look, I know what some people are going to say. Well, you're spending this. You're trying to make the Watson thing work. Who cares? Yes, the Watson thing is an incredible monetary investment. You spent a ton of draft assets. So you know what? If you've got to basically, jumpstart this even more to try to make sure that it works. And look, again, for the 50th time, Deshaun Watson finishes the season. The Browns were going to the playoffs last year. I don't want to hear it from any of you. But Pete, this is now a group. And look, you look around the AFC, you're competing with the Buffalo Bills. You're competing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Passing game is going to be a huge part of it. This was supposed to be what was supposed to happen in 2023 anyway. Problem is, your franchise quarterback got injured, and you had to figure it out and find a way to make it all work. And it did, with a 38-year-old quarterback coming in late in the season, tossing the pill all over the place. So now you just have more ammunition there, more guys that can contribute as receivers within the passing game. It's a pretty thick and hardy group, Pete. And we're talking about a team that one time everybody thought was going to turn the world on fire with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. Obviously, it never worked out. But you look at what is there now and basically track records of what these guys can give you. It should be a way with a new offensive coordinator, with a head coach with an offensive mind who's looking obviously to do things a little differently as does in the past. You want to get that vertical game going. You saw how important and successful it made everything else when it was going with Joe Flacco. It is a nice setup for this team right now.
Well, and the fact that other than Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Bell even, and if they bring in anybody else, those are all guys you are hoping are going to take another step forward. So that means you have that many opportunities for a guy to sort of have a better year, increase their role, which is what you want. I mean, I like the fact that they've built their wide receiver room that way, that just they've given themselves this many opportunities to sort of have one guy break through or multiple guys break through. But even if they don't, just the fact that you have that many options should, improve the offense, create the spacing on the field. You mentioned Jerome Ford. If Jerry Jeudy is a guy who's creating space down the field, then Jerome Ford has the potential to create more yardage underneath, or David Njoku, whoever it is. Like, that's a lot of threats. Even if you don't think they're proven receivers, other than Amari Cooper and David Njoku now, that you still have to, you can't just not defend them. You have to account for these guys. So there's a lot of reason to be excited about that. And then if they're going to lean into spread, then you're just going to have more of them on the field at any given time, which here again, they have to come up with ways to defend it. So it puts pressure on teams that don't necessarily have a lot of fast corners. It puts pressure. They have the ability to then transform their offense to put pressure on teams that may not have the most physical corners. Like the Browns have been very good about sort of giving themselves a lot of options in terms of how do they want to attack people, which I think is important. One of the things that I appreciate about Jerry Jeudy is he's not 170 pounds. He's 6'1", at least coming out of college. I assume he's bigger. He was 193 pounds. And like, people are going, well, his 40 was slow. He, like, a couple of years ago, he went 21.36 miles per hour or something like that. He's a burner. He's a guy that can obviously, with the ball in his hands, can create, but he's not tiny, which I think sort of works with the fact that you play in the AFC North. That always makes me nervous, with people who talk about, well, I want Xavier Worthy on the Browns. They've got to play outside, at least for the time being. I hope the dome arrives tomorrow, but until that happens, one of the reasons I think not having a dome is a competitive disadvantage for you is it sort of limits the type of personnel you can have theoretically. But you get somebody with a little heft, relatively speaking. The Browns have a whole bunch of receivers over 200 pounds. If Jerry Jeudy is in that range, he's one more guy. It is going to push everything down the field. It does put more pressure on, one, the Browns running the ball effectively, and two, the pass protection. But that's a world you're going to live in, because they still have to defend those guys. And if they're wrong, we get the instant offense that this team desperately needs. Explosive plays. Certainly that's something that the Browns have highlighted this offseason where they want to improve. Jerry Jeudy having as many 40-yard pass receptions as he's had. Those are certainly explosive plays. They lead to instant offense. I would love him to get more consistent. I would love him to be a better route runner because he's awful in that regard. But you're willing to bet on it. You're willing to see if that can happen because, as you mentioned, it's a contract year for him. He's trying to get that big payday, so he's got every incentive, as all of these guys do, to keep working to get better.
Well, and Pete, now you bring up obviously the combine, the 4.45 40 time at 193. And look, you're trying to run fast. You show up at the combine late. So that probably tells you Jerry Jeudy carries himself at around 200 pounds, if not more, normally. Keep in mind, this is a guy now who will be going in his 5th NFL season, so far removed from his college years. So 200 pounds is probably what Jerry Jeudy was. You cut weight to go to the combine. You know what I'm saying? You either bulk up so you measure well, Brock Bowers, or you slim down to try to run as fast as possible. Certainly with probably the route Jerry Jeudy went. But you put this group together, and the thing, we don't know when Watson can physically start getting back to 100%. Obviously, you hope it is sooner than later. You hope they continue the trend of getting everybody together and getting these workouts in together. But you have put in a solid effort here over the last, 3 off seasons. Obviously, you paid the freight for Amari Cooper to get him in here on a deal where Dallas was just looking to unload a player. Jokes on Jerry Jones. That player produced obviously back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons, 1,000-yard seasons rather. You made the move for a player that you covered in Elijah Moore. You drafted, as you mentioned, and which I completely agree with because I think it's a way you want to go. You get bigger. You draft a Cedric Tillman. David Bell is not considered a Smurf receiver. David Bell is considered a bigger receiver. I've been trying to say for a week now, I think the Browns are done with the small receivers. Whatever their infatuation was with it, it just has never worked during the Stefanski's regime. We've had a bunch of them, the Grants of the world, of course, the Goodwins of the world, obviously the Anthony Schwartzes of the world. These guys have just not panned out. As you get better and get older and get more established, you realize, hey, maybe some things I'm doing aren't working. The Smurf wide receivers don't work. Has probably something to do with the fact that you do play outside. You do play in Northeast Ohio. You play in the AFC North, so road games late in the year are weather obviously affected. It's just a smart way to do business. Understand what some of your negatives are and go the other way. And, look, analytics, data, you can look at it. Look, this just ain't working. So you know what? We're smart enough to trust the numbers, trust the way we do things. And look, it's time to start to go against the grain. So you do the opposite because it's not working. This is what we thought. This is how we thought it was going to go. But it is just not working. So therefore, change in theory. Let's try it another way. These guys are still very athletic. Maybe they don't run 4.3s, but they do run 4.4s. The point is to be successful. The point is to get it done. And, to see growth within this organization over the last 4 years and seeing them maybe change some of their beliefs because some things did not yield the success that they were hoping for. It is what you are hoping about. We got a bunch of stuff coming. Obviously, we have, getting ready free agency on Monday, but there is one we want to talk about. This is one Pete and I have been messaging about. So we're going to close that with this. But look, bottom line, Jerry Jeudy, Browns got it done. Segment 3 coming up. Everybody stick around. I've talked about this a million times. My wife, my girls, they love their concerts. They love going to see live music. But the problem is there's so many different apps out right now. And it's always, who can you trust? Are the seats right? And for my wife and girls, they usually are buying last minute. They got a lot going on. So you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They are easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. They have views from the seats in the venue so you know what you're getting up front, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. Heck, they even got job loss protection. So you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has tickets on deals right now up to the start of the event and even an hour after its start. It's the best place to find last-minute deals. You can find exclusive fast deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with the Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. You find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app and create an account. You can use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, segment 3, Jerry Jeudy, officially a Cleveland Brown, traded for pick 155 and 202 in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, this is one Pete and I have been talking about here. Now, we believe the Cleveland Browns will have interest in Christian Wilkins. And with that, look, I don't think anything changed with the Justin Madubuike deal, guys. The Browns have a really good idea about what guys are going to get. So it's going to be in that range, most likely a bit more. But, Pete, this is the intriguing part. Everybody keeps bringing up the Zadarius Smith name. Are the Browns going to bring him back? But for me, it's, can you go big time at edge, or would you go big time at defensive tackle? Alex Wright, he gets 200 more snaps and plays at a snap total that Zadarius Smith played at last year. Are you getting equal production? It's probably a good chance. But the interesting thing is here, would the Browns put that focus onto the interior and then say, hey, we can find one more swing pass rusher. You could still swing an Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo contract. You could, if you were to get Wilkins, get Hurst back. You could say, hey, we can maybe draft an edge with our second, third, fourth pick in this draft. But it would be interesting. And look, Pete, you and I have been dying for this. And last year we finally got to see interior defensive line play. But you said, you could get a Hurst back. You have a Tomlinson. You bring in a Christian Wilkins. Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, if I steel man the case for Christian Wilkins, it revolves around the fact that he was on the team with Deshaun Watson that won the national title with Clemson. He might be very intrigued to play for Jim Schwartz. The Browns have a chance to be very, very good and contend for the playoffs. Those are all things that work in their favor. Unfortunately, Justin Madubuike's contract says no chance, or I should say they shouldn't go after it. Even if Christian Wilkins was to just take the same average yearly salary that Madubuike did, which is $24.5 million. It's going to be so difficult for him to justify that figure. I don't think there's a way he can produce to that level. So your better bet is you better
get the 13 sacks that Justin Madubuike got last year for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and you got to make up for that production in the aggregate. Multiple players, potentially over multiple positions. And one of the reasons I really like Zadarius Smith, and I think it's difficult to let him go, is because he can play base end. And then you get an obvious passing situation. He kicks inside. So you get that interior pressure that allows Okoronkwo to be on the edge across from Myles Garrett. And, you'd love to say, well, Myles Garrett will play inside more, but, and he'll do the linebacker thing and he'll occasionally line up inside there, but he clearly prefers to play on the outside. So what's your best way to get more players on the field? Get somebody with the flexibility to kick inside. One of the guys, if they don't keep Zadarius Smith, one of the guys that I think could make a lot of sense there is Tyquan Lewis from the Indianapolis Colts. I hesitate to mention the fact that Tyquan Lewis went 64th overall in the 2018 draft after the Browns traded down from a second-round pick to then take Chad Thomas at 67th pick, which is going great. No complaints. So that's sort of
where's he DJing these days anyway?
That's a good question. So that's one way to do it is like, I'm a big fan of more interior pass rush, but I think your best way to do it is to do that. And if you were to get a guy like Tyquan Lewis, it really frees up Alex Wright to sort of really contend for that job. You have the depth. You have another guy. Tyquan Lewis can rush from the B gap, as can Alex Wright. And I think you get the depth you want and you get the competition you want. I think there's a way to go about that. So, I hope they can get more interior pass rush. I know it will sound sort of counterintuitive, but the guy that I think makes the most sense for what the Browns want to do is DJ Reader, who's actually not a bad pass rusher by any stretch for a 340-pound man. His pass rush run rate is pretty good. but you really want him on the field for first and second down. You want him to get off the field on third down so that you get that smaller rush package and overall improve your overall effectiveness. But between potentially a package of Reeder and Tomlinson on rundowns that can really help shut down the run with guys like Myles Garrett and Alex Wright and everybody else, then you have the ability to be solely focused on rushing the passer on obvious passing situations, which can make you better. That to me is a better use of resources. I think you could get DJ Reeder and Tyquan Lewis for about the same price you'd have to pay for just Christian Wilkins or damn near. So, and there are other ways to do it. And in that, I would still want Maurice Hurst back. I would still want Shelby Harris back. But that's sort of what I'd like to see them do is, yes, I want more interior pass rush. I just want more pass rush in general. But just looking at the landscape of the Browns roster, I think it's more realistic to get it from the interior because of the way they've got Okoronkwo, because they've got Wright, because if they can only have so many defensive ends on the field, they need more guys that can rush from multiple spots, and the interior is the natural place to get it. Unless, or blitzing, and I don't think that's not a reason to draft a linebacker, but that's one other way they could do it.
And, look, you come down to it, you can piecemeal 4 to 5 players for what you are going to pay Christian Wilkins. Look, he's a fantastic player, one of the greatest in the NFL on the interior. But the problem, I think the biggest problem the Browns face is somebody's probably going to be willing to write the bigger check. If you remember last year, the Browns were in on Hargrave, and actually Hargrave was 2 years older than what Wilkins is. And a lot of people, with the contract, do keep in mind that, Wilkins is then 2 years older than Matabigwe, but he's going to get paid. And, Pete and I are probably pretty firm believers that that team most likely is the Houston Texans. But hey, it's fun to be in it. It's fun to give it a shot. And, you have Jim Schwartz, and it's not like Jim Schwartz is a one-way specific guy. He can make a lot of different things work. I think it's something the Browns are going to push for. But with most deals that involve the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be a deal that they dictate. Christian Wilkins is most likely going to sign a deal that he and his team dictate. That is usually something the Cleveland Browns are not involved in. Your big news of the day, obviously, Cleveland Browns have acquired Jerry Jeudy, pick 155, pick 202. Cleveland Browns return a receiving unit right now that had over 4,000 yards in the NFL in 2024, doing everything they can to make sure that if Watson remains healthy, the Browns hopefully have a passing game that can be on par with the Kansas City Chiefs, with the Buffalo Bills. He is Pete Smith. Obviously, the OBR going to be clutch for you this week, as it always is, starting Monday, obviously noon, the legal tampering period. So make sure you're following at _Pete Smith _ everything over the OBR. Pete and the boys over there will obviously be putting out a ton of great content, as will I here on the show. Got more stuff coming throughout the weekend here because I'd wanted to do a Digger defensive dive, but obviously the story of the day has been the Browns acquisition of Jerry Jeudy. I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you are animals, but you are my animals. Love you all to death. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.